Cooking with family. It's better than cooking with gas.
Cooking with family gives you gas.
That's a cold open right there.
Yeah, pretty cold.
Welcome back to Heritage Cooking. I am here with my lovely mother, and today we are going to talk to you about a very divisive dish, something that a lot of people love, a lot of people dislike, and a lot of people eat a dime store version of. This is the one, the only ramen noodle. So we went a little bit broader. In it's not just ramen noodle. We're also going to talk to you a little bit about other types of noodle. We won't get into that weird Italian stuff. That is too heavy. Maybe 3 years from now we'll do an Italian one because Italian cooking is just exhausting. It wears me out so much I'm not even hungry for it anymore. It's so heavy.
Well, then you're cooking the wrong kind of Italian. There's so many different regions in Italy. You're cooking the wrong region then.
I thought there was just noodle country and wine country.
Okay.
So ramen noodle is a favorite of mine. It's one that is so simple to make and so easy to dress up that you can really do anything you want to do with it. I usually will find myself more on the traditional ramen kind of side, a lot of broth with the wheat noodles, and just mixing it up to my palate, whatever it happens to be that week. So obviously the ready-made packets are an easy thing to do. Probably even up on the mountain, huh?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
You really just need hot water, and
exactly.
Kind of does it itself. Not necessarily the most healthy meal, but delicious.
Well, it's a great place to start. That's the whole point. It's a great place to start. And if you dilute those packets enough, with broth or water or whatever, then that sodium count goes way down. And, obviously you're going to consume it. If you're going to consume it anyway, you might as well consume it with more liquid and fiber in there than just the packet and noodles.
A lot of times I'll make the noodle packet, but not put the seasoning in.
Absolutely.
I'll season it with whatever I'm in the mood for, and I'll save those seasoning packets, and I'll use them for all sorts of other applications.
Yes.
It's such a potent flavor that you can use a very small amount of it and do a lot with it. It packs a punch.
Right. Yeah. Have you ever tried putting it like in a meatloaf or a dish like that?
Mm-mm.
Again, packs the punch, right?
We've used it in like taco meat, so I guess similar. But yeah, never in something as substantial as like a meatloaf. Probably be really good.
Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting. I love seasonings because you can do anything. You can go any direction with seasonings, and seasoning mixes or blends. I tend not to buy many of those because I dry so many of my own herbs and stuff that I don't need the packets. But it's so nice and easy to just take an Italian seasoning blend and give it a couple shakes, and you've already got just a touch of something in there. It makes a difference. And I think the ramen experience is very much like that too. Again, we've talked about this before, the whole idea that there's really no new cooking. It's always just this base of the standard seasonings and taste profile of a culture, and then it's expanded and you can take it any direction you want to go. And that's one of the things I think about what we're doing with this heritage cooking thing that is so much fun is it isn't just a recipe. It isn't a cooking show, right? It's actually the experience of cooking and the wonder of cooking, because we both love to eat, right? So, well, me more than you, but it's about that, getting the profile, the taste profile, and you can do it with anything, right? Replace noodles with zucchini, or replace One day I will get you to eat green food. One day. Wilted lettuce doesn't count.
How about potatoes? Is that green?
Well, you could eat green potatoes, but you'd probably be dead.
So, one thing I wanted to touch on quickly, listening to you speak just then, is we've been searching for a tagline.
Yes.
So how about heritage cooking? It's more than a recipe.
Oh, I like that.
I think we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Drop it in the comments. We need a tagline, guys. So
yeah, help us out, would you? As much as my son and I are alike, sometimes we don't agree. So yeah, we need an objective third party here.
Maybe we'll put up a poll on Instagram.
There you go. Okay.
So we both made, I'll say, more like traditional ramen recipes. But when we were kicking around the idea for this show, we had debated maybe going completely different directions with what we were going to make. Was there a dish that you didn't make that you were intrigued by, or that you were interested in trying, or something you already made once and maybe wanted to try again or reinvent?
Well, that's actually kind of what I did. I guess at one point we did talk about that, but I kind of went in my own direction anyway. And I think mine was a real fusion between, let me see if I can get this right so I don't have a grandniece or somebody tell me I'm saying it wrong. Pho? Vietnamese pho? Is that right?
It's one of it's you're supposed to pronounce it like F-U-H, like pho.
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 That's what I said. Pho.
Yeah, well, I don't know, like it should just be spelled that way, and then it wouldn't be so complicated.
Right, exactly. So the recipe that I originally had started with, which actually started me on my whole ramen cooking experience, was from a guy on YouTube called Young Man Cooking. And he does Cantonese food. And he had this recipe for a creamy ramen, a vegan creamy ramen dish. And that kind of started me because the flavor profile in it was so good. Then I started experimenting with cooking the noodles in the broth rather than separate from the broth. And then it kind of devolved into more of a pho experience than a ramen experience. I mean, more than just the noodles, which I understand ramen noodles are generally made out of wheat. And it's a Japanese dish. And pho is a Vietnamese dish, and it's rice noodles. So, there's that subtle difference in the noodles, which to me, I just want noodles that taste good. And I guess I don't think much about what they're made out of. But anyway, my recipe ended up, I think, more probably in the pho category, which tends to be a more herbal broth, and the meat, if there's meat in it, is a very thin kind of slight. It's not a hearty food. It's a lighter fare, where the ramen is a more hearty fare with bigger chunks of meat and more substantial. So I'm not sure. Mine's kind of a hybrid, I guess.
Kind of in between.
Yeah.
So I went off the beaten path for me, but still very much a ramen type dish. I wanted to experiment with some seasonings that I've used in other dishes, but I've never dumped into a ramen before. So you'll see it on the screen right now. It's a ghastly color because of what I used in it. It is not as visually appealing as an end product as most of the things I make. When it was all cooking together in the broth, it was gorgeous, absolutely beautiful dish. And then when it was done, it was red. The noodles are dyed like a pink.
Wow.
So I guess I'll take it right into the recipe right now. I made a spicy sirloin ramen. This is an offshoot of a recipe that is kind of my standard, which is the sirloin ramen. and I wanted to make it a spicy dish. I wanted to see how far I could push the spiciness and still have it be edible. So we succeeded in that, but I used flaming hot Cheetos seasoning.
Oh no!
So for those of you who don't know, Cheetos makes a macaroni and cheese product. Spiral noodles, and they have their flaming hot, and they have their flaming hot jalapeno. So this was the flaming hot traditional, the red, bright red Cheetos. It's essentially that seasoning, that dust. And I've used it to marinate chicken before,
Okay.
but never a steak, and never something that was going into a broth. So it gave the entire, it gave the whole thing a ghastly color. But essentially it's just diced up sirloin. I used the vegetable stock that I made from the leeks from our last show, and mixed it 50-50 with chicken stock. And I used the chicken stock instead of the beef stock because it just gives me more of that ramen feel. Because the ramen that made me fall in love with ramen, right, wrong, or indifferent, was the Maruchan chicken noodle ramen. So, like, to me, the noodles are supposed to taste like chicken broth.
Yes. Yeah.
So I always use chicken stock even when I'm making a beef product. And I diced up some peppers and some mushrooms, and then really brought the heat into it with the spicy adobo that I used in our deviled egg episode. Which I found in spray bottles, which is fantastic. Squeeze bottles. Squeeze bottles is what normal people would call that. And then
one of those bets you used to make when you played pool.
What's that? Banaka, right? And then some sriracha as well. So I really prepared it in two parts: the noodle and the broth, and then all of the, I'll call them solid ingredients. Almost sautéed them in a pan. And once that was all ready, I combined them down. So the noodles and the broth finished in the sauté pan, and then I transferred the whole thing to serving dishes.
Okay.
So it cooked up really, really nice. I marinated the steak for about 3-4 hours, a little brown sugar in there as well.
Okay. I was going to say, what did you marinate the steak with?
It was the spicy adobo, the sriracha, the brown sugar, and a little bit of that chicken ramen.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. About halfway through the process, I added the Cheetos fire sauce. And then I transferred all of the marinade into the saute pan, and I sauteed it in the marinade. So some cooking purists might get on me a little bit about that, but I wanted to make sure that it maintained the consistency through the dish. So I could have made a side marinade, but I'm not really weird about like food safety stuff, so I just kept cooking it.
You're cooking it anyway, so
yeah. So it looked great when it came out of the fridge. It cooked up really nice in the pan. Diced up some peppers and mushrooms, and it gave it a real nice look in the pan. And then I had just boiled 2 of the Maruchan bricks of ramen in my custom broth, a little tiny bit of garlic seasoning in there, and then just dumped it all together, put it on low, and really just folded the noodles through everything so it was blended, because I didn't break the noodles. I left the noodles full size, which is something I probably won't do the next time.
Really?
I'll probably smash up the noodles in the package before I boil them.
Why?
To get the shorter noodles. There's a lot of substance to this dish. There's a lot of veggies. There's a lot of meat. So I found myself getting some noodles, some veggies and meat, instead of having it like all be one flavor experience.
Yes. Yeah.
So that would be the thing for the next time is I'll use the jalapeno Cheeto dust, so I don't get that ghastly red color, and then I'll break the noodles up. But it was delicious. It was delicious. The hot
level.
It was non-existent, and then it hit all at once. And I can't remember if I texted it to you or to Ashley, but I said it has tomorrow heat.
Wow.
Because like it was fine on the palate, and it's like I'm eating a whole bunch, and then my head started to get just a little hot, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's the heat. And then like 5 minutes later, I felt it in my digestive system.
Oh.
So I'm
Oh,
calling it tomorrow heat because
yeah, I get
yeah.
it.
But very good. The second half of it, I had the next night reheated, and because I saved all that marinade and finished it in the broth versus adding the broth and then filling a bowl, there was so much moisture still in it. I could just shove it in the microwave.
Oh,
And
nice.
the noodles actually grabbed some more of it, and it was really, it wasn't like a ramen noodle the second day. It was more of just like a noodle dish rather
Like
than
a
a soup.
casserole or a stew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was really, really good, and it held the heat. It held the heat
Okay.
through all that moisture, so it was really good.
Okay, so just to be clear, are you using the seasoning packet only from the macaroni and cheese Cheeto combination and not actually Cheetos?
Correct. And so they used to sell it standalone. I couldn't find it at the store, so I bought boxes of the mac and cheese to get the seasoning.
Okay. All
But yeah,
right.
no Cheetos at all in the dish. If you wanted to get cutesy, you could garnish it, I guess, with some
Oh,
flaming hot
sure.
Cheetos.
That's a good
Um,
idea.
maybe some greens and then some flaming hot Cheeto just on the top if you're presenting a dish. I do drop eggs into my boiling ramen, and boil the eggs in the ramen. Um,
Like out of the shell?
yeah, you just crack an egg into it as it's boiling.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Huh.
Um,
So
if
it's kind of like egg drop soup? Does it break up or?
No, if you pour it while your boil is going,
Yeah.
it all depends on how long you cook it. But even if it's a real short amount of time, it's usually just the yolk holding on for dear life, and you can break it in your dish if you'd like, or you boil it just a little bit longer, and you get a cooked yolk in your
Oh, I
dish.
love that idea.
Yeah,
That's an
it's
awesome idea.
right as your boil starts to crest, just crack an egg in there, and it'll kill the
Okay.
boil. So you got to bring it back to a boil, and then you're done.
Okay. Wow. See, because I'm not into the hard-boiled eggs on the ramen, which is another thing that makes it ramen is the boiled egg on it. And I don't know. I just can't do that. So, but that I could do, like dropping it right into the broth. Yes, absolutely.
If
In
if
fact,
I'm
I
make
just pulled a recipe the other day for an egg, really easy, like egg drop soup that I want to try too. But this, I like that the yolk stays intact. I like that.
Yeah, if I'm cooking like for just me, like I'm throwing on a movie and cracking a cheap bottle of wine and making ramen, I'll intentionally undercook it.
Uh-huh.
Because I cook my ramen always in broth, so I'm never
Yes.
straining it. So I just
Yes.
transfer what's in the pot into the bowl, and then I
Uh-huh.
break the yolk, and it gives it a little bit of a thicker consistency.
Yes. Absolutely. Well,
Um,
that's something else I found in the research I did on ramen was one of the things that someone suggested to silken and thicken ramen broth is butter. And
mm,
of course, that makes complete sense, doesn't it? The fats, are going to emulsify, with the broth and get stuck on those noodles. And yeah, so that might be a similar kind of sensation in there.
yeah, I'm here for it. That sounds good.
Actually, it does, doesn't it?
Now that
I
is a
didn't
border
try that because I used a different fat, but I will try it the next time.
that makes it a borderline Italian dish if you start dumping butter into it.
No, come on now. You brought garlic into the situation. I don't
Fair.
think garlic is traditional in ramen.
Yeah, so that was my dish. Would make again. Like I said, it's more of an offshoot of something I would normally make. I just really wanted to take the opportunity through the lens of this show to try something way further on the spice scale, and it went pretty well. Like I said, visually unappealing.
Mm.
Like I'll put the final plated picture next to what it looked like in the pan, and you wouldn't even think it's the same dish.
So you had mentioned at one point that you took it out of the refrigerator. So did you do your prep work like on one day and then combine the dish the next day, or?
It was the leftovers.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I made it all same time. I marinated. I was gonna marinate overnight, and I got hungry. So it
That's the best
marinated.
reason to cook, isn't it?
Yeah, it marinated for like 4 hours. Could have gone for longer. It didn't break down the meat much. Not that the ingredients that I had in there would necessarily, but it could have gone another few hours on the marinade.
Yeah, you used a sirloin.
Yeah, sirloin thin cut, and then diced it.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So your dish, you touched on the top of the show, more of a creamy type ramen. You want to take us through that?
Yeah. So I don't like coconut. Okay. But I don't. What it is, I've learned is I don't like fresh coconut. I don't like coconut pieces. They get stuck and I can't swallow them. I can eat something and not know there's coconut in there, and when I'm all done chewing, I'm like, it's right there. I can't do it. So I've never really done a lot of cooking with coconut anything. I drink coconut water now because the electrolytes are really good for as hot as it gets up here and being outside working all the time. Doesn't taste like coconut. And then I started coconut milk. Very, very little coconut taste, but it is that unbelievable fat. So we were talking about the butter in these dishes. I think it's the fat, because you're using the coconut cream, that makes the difference in making this particular recipe really work. So like I said, I think after I learned a little bit about ramen and pho, yes, I'll say it that way every single time, otherwise I'll forget, is one of the things is the type of noodle, and the second thing is the hardiness of the dish itself. And the noodles that I actually have been buying are from Lotus Foods, and it's an organic millet and brown rice ramen noodles. And they don't have as much firm texture, I suppose, as wheat noodles. And there's no particular reason why I'm eating millet and brown rice. It's not like I'm gluten-free or anything like that. It's just what we were able to find. It's a package of 12 little squares, and it works just fine. So those are the noodles I'm using. And then the dish itself is really, I have taken this young man cooking recipe and I've tried to make it easier for me working with one burner, because most of the time I only have one burner to cook on. And of course, and I hate doing dishes. So what I try to do is not mess up very many pans. So I grow broccolini in my garden, and there's some pictures of my broccolini growing. And so I did broccolini and tofu, just sauteed it in the pan, and then set it aside, and then started the broth, which in my case was chicken broth and a little bit of water, and then coconut cream, which you just pull. If you buy just a can of coconut milk, the cream is always up at the top, and you can just dish it out really easily without getting into the, or I suppose if you're going to be adding water to the chicken stock, you could just make it coconut water, milk water instead. And just use that. And then my little secret ingredient is miso. So I love miso. There's that salty, there's a richness to it that I just enjoy in dishes. And so I thought, maybe I'll stick that in the ramen. So I stick miso in there and boil up that broth. Miso's got to be boiled. So, you've got to make sure you get that broth boiling. And then I just put the ramen noodles right in that broth, cook it for a minute, start to tease the, apart, and then finish cooking it. While that's happening, I make the bowls. Now, this is another thing. I've made it both ways, and like maybe that's the reason why it's like that. So the soy sauce, tahini, sesame oil, a little bit of sugar mixture, actually in the ramen bowl, and then whisked together. So the tahini is a fat, right? So that fat is going to emulsify with the liquid, with the soy sauce and this, sesame and all that. in the actual serving bowl. And then I take the broth with the noodles, ladle it out and into that bowl. And what happens is that oil chili oil too. So a really good chili oil. When you dump it in, the seasoning that's in the bottom of that ramen bowl actually goes whoosh, and it ends up like wringing the broth and the noodles, so that you get a taste of it every time you pull something out of the bowl, whether you're using chopsticks to pull out the noodles or whatever. I've tried putting that seasoning mix over the top, and it's not the same. There's something about the depth of the flavor and the dose you get with the way that it rings the bowl, that is just, it makes such a difference, such a huge difference. The recipe that I've listed here, I think you could use it for 2 people, but again, just bump it a little bit and easily you can make it into 4. I don't have real ramen bowls, so they're a little bit bigger, I think. Hint, hint, honey, like Christmas is coming. A ramen bowl.
Let me take a note.
Anyway, and I love sesame oil. I love sesame everything. So I use more sesame oil than the recipe calls for, just because I just love sesame oil. So I'll put that on afterwards when the dish is finished. I'll sprinkle a little bit of sesame oil on there, a little bit of soy. The other thing that's different in this recipe too is the use of the dark soy sauce. Have you ever used that?
I have a couple times. It's so different. Like I wish they'd have a different name for it, because it's to me it doesn't make any sense to call it soy sauce, because it seems like it's a completely different thing. But anyway, that makes a difference in this dish as well. I make this a lot because I really like it. If I'm making it for your dad, I tend to add meat, not tofu. Fair.
And so chicken would go really well in this. It would be really good. Or you could change the profile, I think, and use a beef broth and use beef slices of some kind instead, because and I use a red miso rather than the white miso, because it's got just a little bit more presence, I think, than the white miso does. And that's the secret weapon, I think. Personally, I think it's the miso. And then the coconut milk, coconut cream, it's that butter thing. And now I'm going to have to try the ramen with butter, because I think that's part of why I like it. It's the silkiness of it. It's the smoothness of it, the sweetness of it, just a bit. Now, and there's a little bit of sugar in the seasoning from the ramen bowl. There's a little bit of sugar in there, and that also makes a difference. I've tried making it without the sugar. There's something about the combination of the salty soy sauce and the sugar. It just balances really well. So, but again, I'm not sure this is a ramen. We'll just call this Heritage Cooking Fusion episode, because I'm not sure which it is.
And ultimately, I'm not sure it matters.
Right?
If it's good.
See, and that's again back to this. This isn't a cooking show. This is the experience of a mother and a son, experiencing cooking, and just enjoying cooking and getting the taste to where they want it, and that whole just enjoying it. To me, it's not so important to stay true to a culture, I guess. That's because I'm American. I don't know.
Heritage cooking. If you're not substituting, you're not trying.
Right. And I don't know. I was thinking about that too. I don't think I ever made ramen for you guys when you were kids.
I almost said that earlier. I don't have a single recollection of any Asian dish outside of like maybe stir fry. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't have been often. No. I don't know what I fed you guys, to be honest. But no, I never did ramen, because it's not healthy thing. And then you went off to college and all you ate was ramen. You and your brother. So nice and
yeah,
cheap.
but I don't. Right, exactly. And I don't know the whole dried package, the dried cube of noodles is just so handy. It's just so easy to throw it in, and you don't have to smush the linguine down or the spaghetti. You know what I mean? You throw it in, it's just kind of done, and it's fast.
I keep packages in my car, and if for whatever reason I don't have lunch at work, I'll break it up into itty bitty broken pieces and put it in a paper cup and take it to the water cooler that's got the hot nozzle and put another cup over the top of it to kind of steam it, and it comes out perfect every time.
Wow.
It was one of the easiest things anyone could ever make. And
wow.
I appreciate how simple it is and how easy it is, and then how creative you can get while it's still ramen.
Yes.
Like one of the things I found when I was researching was a sushi ramen. And it's got seaweed wrap and sushi grade ahi tuna raw in the ramen. And I really want to try it. I really want to try it.
You cook the ramen and then you put the other stuff in it?
Yeah, you almost layer it on top. And you're supposed to like the noodles are your rice. So you grab the noodles, you grab a piece of the seaweed, and you grab a piece of the tuna, and you eat it.
Oh, that does sound. That does sound. You know what's interesting? What you said about you don't remember ever having made like Asian food when you were growing up. I don't think I ever cooked it, and now it's probably my preference. Your dad gets so tired of it because he's not a big fan of like soy sauce and stuff like that, and yet that I seem to keep coming back to that flavor profile again and again. Maybe it's because I just didn't get enough of it,
Yeah, you're flexing that muscle now.
Right.
Well, what Dad will enjoy is our July episode.
Okay.
We are going to do cookout food.
Oh, yes. Maybe we'll have a cameo by Dad because, oh, yeah.
we absolutely should, because I don't know if I've even told you this, but we're already going to have one guest cameo.
Oh, really?
So we can make this a whole family affair.
Okay. All right. Ooh.
So
I'm
drop your
now.
ideas in the comments for what our cookout food should be. I'll tell you.
What is your favorite cookout food?
My favorite is probably bratwurst.
Okay.
And I was thinking of leaning that direction. I won't spoil too much, but I'll say that there is a summer drink that I was thinking about making.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'll spoil on that. I've already said too much.
Okay. All right. Well, it'll be interesting to hear from our, what do you call them, guests, watchers? What do you call them, people?
The people watching it?
Viewers. That's it, viewers. Our viewers. What is your favorite cookout food? Like, what's your go-to for a summer cookout that you just love to make and it tastes so good? Love to hear it, because we're pretty traditional. Just put it on the grill and cook it, and it tastes like cookout. We don't get real complicated, so I really need some ideas for this one, please.
So that'll be our next show. But between now and then, on this channel, there are going to be some new shows launching. I will say that Bachelor season is upon us. So if that's your vibe, keep a lookout for that on the channel. If it is not, we will be back with our next episode in early to mid-July. That is probably way more the speed of some people, Mom. I know you're not a Bachelor fan.
I'm not. I tried. I really tried, but I just, I never got into the show in the first place, but then,
it's not good TV.
Maybe Survivor, or something like that. I might get into something like that a little bit more, but the whole Bachelor thing, it also might be spoiled. I just have to say, it also might be spoiled doing Bachelor Night with you at 6:02, because that is a thing. Like, but I felt myself trying to listen so much to the, well, she doesn't really want to be here, or, all of those key phrases that I didn't care about any other dynamics that was going on, so I could enjoy that. But just to sit up here on my mountain and watch Bachelor, sorry, not my thing.
No worries. It is not for everyone. It's a very, very specific subcultural group.
Yeah, but I'm really enjoying your top five draft show with Riley.
I guess we're plugging all the shows. Yeah.
I'm really enjoying that.
So like and subscribe Heritage Cooking. Let us know about your favorite ramen. Let us know about your favorite cookout food. And then mosey on by the channel and watch Jets, Mets, and Regrets. And watch the top 5. And also be on the lookout for a couple new shows that are starting here in the next 30 days or so. Shorter format. So if you're looking at your app right now and it says 38 minutes and you're already exhausted, shorter format shows. So
Right.
Something you can knock out in a bathroom break instead of a drive to work.
Okay, no more bathroom references this month, okay?
Thank you for joining us, as always. We're going to continue to work on the catchphrases. But until then, we'll see you in the kitchen.
Love it.